Hello and welcome to Pest in Class, expert voices in pest management. Today we talk with Gavin Janis, the account executive with Siro. We talk about his personal connection and experience in the pest industry and how Siro can innovate how you train your team. I'm your host, Amanda Salvatore. Let's get into it. Gavin Janis, you are the account executive with Siro, and today we are discussing your path from pest control to sales in the field service industry. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Excited to dive into it.
We're very excited to have you today. First and foremost, as in every episode here at Pest in Class, we start with a little icebreaker so we can get to know you. So let's see what yours is today. Not too difficult, I hope. If you could choose one skill to master overnight, what would it be and why?
It's a good one. I actually answered this question a while ago for myself when I'd graduated. I ended up, getting a business degree, but with where my career is taking me, if I could have gone back and majored in anything in college, I would have been an English major. I think if you have mastered the skill of the English language, you can be very dangerous in the way that you communicate with people, the way that you position potentially an email, a text, or things along those lines, to communicate the best as possible when you've mastered that skill. Not to say I'm terrible at that skill, but I wish I was a master. And so that's probably would be the answer to that question.
I love that. I think that's very cool. I never really thought of that. I never thought about an English major in that way, but absolutely. I love that. I genuinely couldn't decide. I thought about the question and I was like, I don't know. There's too many skills.
Yeah,
I need help in too many arenas.
If I was gonna be a technical engineer, I'd go, understand how to be perfect coding in Python. That'd be my skill. But without any, necessarily a hard skill that you need for the roles that I've had in my job, I think English is that set that powers everything that you do. So
it's a nice through line
there. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of your experience early on, I would love to know about your journey. You have a personal connection to pests, so we would love to hear your story.
Yeah, so went to UC Berkeley, got recruited there for rugby, but there was no scholarship money that came with that. And so I was staring about $200,000 in student, debt if I wasn't able to find money to pay for it. And I was convinced I needed there was going to be a way for me to graduate school and actually still make the money to, pay all that off while I was there. And so I found a gig where you could go sell pest control door to door. And at the time, it's booming nowadays. More and more people are doing it. That surprisingly, you think door to door is going away. It's actually growing. But at the time, it was very small. And telling friends and family, hey, I'm going to go do this. Everyone thinks I'm about to get scammed. Hey, I'm going to go make $20,000 to $30,000. That's what the average guy makes. It sounded too good to be true. And I went out and sold in Sacramento, California that year, did above average, made more than I even expected. And it was like, wow, this is really cool. And so then my second year, managed a few guys to stay with the same company, did it again. My third summer, and this was a year-long endeavor, but the selling portion of our job was within the summer. I actually left to go start my own pest control company with two other buddies in Tampa, Florida, called Bold Servicing. If anybody knows it, I was one of the founders there. You can go see my face on their website. And in that experience, I learned a ton about the pest control industry. I also learned that at 21, when I was starting it, it might have not been something I wanted to commit to at such a young age. And as the people know, listening to this podcast, it takes a while to make a pest control company profitable and established in a market. And so I ended up leaving after that first year, gave my equity back to my buddy. There's no bad blood there. It just was not going to be for me. And I realized I could make more money short term as I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to commit to long term, and did 2 more years managing door-to-door pest control teams. And then my last year, I actually even transitioned into managing in-home termite sales reps as well. So they'd actually be going to leads, closing on those, selling a higher ticket job, not just working within the door-to-door side. But yeah, I've sprayed a ton of homes. I'm licensed in multiple states, and yes, have a ton of experience in pest control before coming to Siro.
That's incredible. What a story. Starting off really young must be difficult in that way of figuring out what is the right fit for you.
Yeah.
So how did you find yourself at Siro?
So I was actually one of the first users of Siro. My company had bought the software as an early adopter of it. And they didn't give it to everybody. They gave it to only a few officers that, kind of raised their hand. Hey, we want this. We think it'll be cool. And so I actually was using the software and I was managing 60 or so guys, and we had great usage. Our team was outperforming every other team in the company. And the founders of Siro actually reached out to me and said, hey, like, how are you getting the usage that you're getting from your team? We don't typically see that. We see a lot of commenting, everyone's recording, everyone's listening. We can see from your data within the company, your team's outperforming everybody else. We'd love to have a conversation with you. And so I spoke to them. At the time, they'd only had 4 employees. And they said, well, hey, if you're interested, we're actually looking to hire our first go-to-market sales hire. And given your prior experience using the software, your experience selling, managing, we think you'd be a great value add here. And so they made a appetizing offer with a good amount of equity. And I'd seen what it done for my team. And, our rookies sold 40% more revenue in 12 weeks than the average rookie would. My termite closers had a 15% higher close rate than the other ones who weren't on Siro. And I'd seen what it was doing for my guys. And I knew how early I'd be getting into this company if it did what I thought it was going to do. This was a no-brainer. And so, yeah, they made a good offer to me, and I hung up my pest control cleats sometime last year. Yeah, right around August to come join Siro.
Oh, wow. So we're recording this in the summertime. So it's almost your year anniversary with them, which is incredible. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's been a great run. And I might even add the reason I had a lot of success in the door-to-door industry and even towards the end bringing on these in-home termite sales reps. The reason I loved what I did is because I got to go provide the same experience for a lot of people in similar shoes that I was 5 years before, where they needed to make money. Maybe they're a college student, maybe they weren't. Maybe this was actually just going to be their year-round job. And the thing that made me feel like what got me up every day was seeing these other guys have success. And so I saw when I had the opportunity to join Siro, I was like, my bandwidth of how many people I can impact, literally 1,000 X's if, I can come to this company and help other businesses get on the software, improve their sales process, improve their people, and get insight to where their people are going right and wrong and help improve sales overall. And so that's why I came here as well. It aligned with what I really enjoyed doing, and that was helping others, for lack of better words, kick ass in sales. And so that's why I'm here.
I love that so much. It's really important to find your why and your motivation when it comes to any job, and it sounds like you found it. So for our listeners who aren't familiar with Siro, can you explain what it is and your mission?
Yeah. So our founders, they're both computer science whizzes, but in their summers in college, they both had internships doing, they say selling knives to moms. They worked for Cutco. Some of people listening might even know what that is. And they were overseeing about 200 sales reps total, and just high school guys at the time, guys and gals. And what drove them insane was they did not know why not a single one out of the 200 that they recruited outperformed them. And they're spread across the country. You can't go listen to every single interaction. You can't be in every single home with them, training them. And so that's where the idea of Siro was created. It was to actually help sales reps first. We definitely provide tons of insight and data for the management side, the owners within companies that use the platform. But that's why they created it. They recognize there's a gap across the country with sales reps where they don't get the proper training. And so that's why they created Siro. And what Siro is, it's an application that you can record off your phone or tablet. And it records, transcribes, and analyzes the face-to-face conversations that sales reps are having in the home. And then from there, our AI goes in and does a handful of different things. It will highlight all the key moments in a conversation. So, when I was using it with my termite team, these could be an hour-long sale. I didn't want to go listen to the entire hour. Maybe I wanted to see how they presented price, or maybe I wanted to see how the customer, what happened when the customer said, this sounds great, but I need to think about it. Well, that's highlighted within the transcripts. You don't have to go find it. It'll take you right there. And I could immediately coach through the platform. You could literally speak onto the transcript. It'll notify the other sales rep that you're coaching, hey, listen to Gavin's feedback here. So I was able to speed up how many recordings I could coach on because I could get to the moments I cared on. And so that's part of the AI right there. And then what's cool is we take all this data we get from all of these recordings, looking, hey, are people skipping steps consistently? Are they dealing with objections more often than others? What's their close rate when this objection comes up? And we provide insight for ownership to say, hey, this rep really needs to be trained on X, get with the manager, or just directly get into Siro and start coaching them up on that. That's kind of the high level idea. Could definitely dive into how we see people use recordings more in detail, but that's who we are, where we came from, and what the platform's doing.
That is incredible. It sounds like it's really streamlining the training process and making it as efficient as possible so that you can reach every team member and not just focus on the few that you think have the highest potential.
Yeah. And especially in this industry, people know you're spread so thin as is. If, you're going to go do a ride along for a day, you've only got maybe 4 hours to go do a ride along with, you're probably going to see 1 to 2 interactions. That's what I would see if I was just doing a ride along with the termite sales rep. In 4 hours, I could probably coach properly on 10 plus recordings from the same guy and learn so much more seeing 10 different times them handling a certain objection or explaining a certain step in the process instead of the 1 to 2 times I saw them do that in person. And then being able to reference back to it with them, hear how you just said that, here's what it should have sounded like. Light bulbs started firing instead of just getting out of the house and talking about it.
I'd love to know, when applying Siro to your business, what is the training process like and who's responsible for implementing it within the organization?
Yeah, that's a great question. So on the training front, we see customers use Siro for the recordings are used for one of 4 ways. It's 1, the sales rep can actually reference back to themselves. They can go hear what they just did in the home, and we see a ton of values gained in that. 2, a manager can get in and actually coach. They can do top-down coaching to that sales rep within the recording that was made. 3, a big aspect of Siro, and this is why actually sales reps love the platform themselves. Go look us up in the App Store. We have 4.9 stars overall, and that comes from all sales reps leaving those reviews. There's a section within Siro, feels almost like social media in a way, where you can jump in and, Amanda, let's say you're the top sales rep. I can go select your name and listen to all the recordings that you elected to post as won deals where you thought you crushed it. And if I know you're the top rep, well, I'm going to get in there and listen to you. So you can learn from the best people on your own time. And then 4, we take that collection of data, see maybe some potential gaps in where someone's going wrong and apply that to that person to help them get better. So that's the 4 ways people use these recordings to train their people. And then as far as implementation goes, I think that's one of the primary reasons I was hired. We had such exceptional usage. And I learned a ton in implementing Siro to my team because at the time, 4 people running the company, they gave you the login and said, go for it, run with Siro. There was no process to how you implemented it. And so when I first rolled it out, and we don't do this today, don't get me, we learned a lot. But when I first rolled it out to my team, not working at Siro in pest control, it was, all right, guys, hey, everybody go record. And half the team recorded. I didn't tote on any of the positives that it would be for them. And I just started listening to these recordings and whacking them. Criticism, say this instead of that, this instead of that, and just hammering the guys. And there was a pretty quick turnaround. Well, screw this app. I hate this thing. And then so I had the conversation with my leaders within my teams of the different offices and was like, guys, I think there's a ton of value here, but how do we get the guys to actually record? And so we had some great conversations, and one of my top guys was like, all right, we're going to focus. We're going to go to get a ton of recordings. Let's start showing our great examples in meeting, only the good ones, so we can get some positive buy-in, like we're all learning together. The guys will get to see what we're doing in the home to actually close deals, and it'll feel like Siro is more of a positive thing than it is someone just top-down nailing you for doing the wrong things. And so we started with that, and then more reps started to record. And then anybody who was recording, it was only positive feedback from me for the first few weeks. Positive, hey, you're nailing this, dude. That was a fantastic way to overcome that objection. Keep doing it exactly like that. Even if they didn't close the deal, if they did it the right way, very positive. And then what started to naturally happen is reps were recording. If they weren't a top rep, they were struggling a ton. they would start tagging me in recordings. Hey, could you listen to this? I don't know what happened. Could you give me some feedback? And so it started to naturally happen. And so as we implement customers, we tell them the first month, this is a celebration tool. We're collectively all working together to get better using Siro. It's not something that I'm just using to tell you what you're doing wrong. Hell, guys, I won't even for the first month tell you've done anything wrong. We want this to be something we can use to learn together. And so as we onboard our customers, it takes 4 meetings total, 2 with management, 2 with the sales reps. We're very, cautious in the way we roll this out, given my experience then. And today, we have a record going right now. We've had 33 of 33 implementations go well in a row, where every rep's recording within the first 2 weeks. And we know it's because of how we've created this culture where we're using very positive feedback initially. And what naturally comes is people want to get better. And so they'll start asking you for the help. And then you get that natural, positive, and constructive criticism within the platform.
I love that structure. I think that works on so many levels of keeping it positive and really showcasing getting better as opposed to everything you've done wrong and all the criticism right off of the bat. What would you say to anyone who thinks their team would feel micromanaged?
Yeah, it's totally how you present it to them. And as I just told, we're 33 in a row here. We've learned a lot, and we'll actually have a full-blown meeting before we kick this off with your reps to have that conversation about how we roll this out. And even how we kick off the sales meeting is the first one with the sales reps. We actually have a full slideshow showing examples of other reps where they were, people hesitant about using the platform. We have little videos of guys, I was hesitant about using this, but now this is what it's done for me. We've got one sales rep where he was closing about 16% on average per deals for the entirety of 2023. 2.5 months into using Siro, his close rate sat at 27%. He's on pace to basically double his income last year. And he has it strictly just from me being able to listen to the top reps. And so we have those proof point examples from people within similar industries, speaking in that, talking to the guys. We show the data. Guys, if you record, listen, ask for feedback, here's the average increases we see. And then we tie that to their commission. It's guys, take that increase, times it by the revenue that you're doing, and then times that by your commission percentage. How much more money is that going to be for you? Is that a car? Is that your kid's college tuition, XYZ, whatever it may be? And so we have a big hype up before we even get them into Siro recording. And so we work with the management to set that meeting up, and then we go in and crush it with them. Management jumps on top. Guys, this is going to be great. We're going to be doing X, Y, and Z with these recordings to all get better. The reason we have Siro is to make you more money. And that's the mission of Siro. We recognize that field sales, in-person sales, is one of the best ways to, financial freedom for anybody. You don't have to have a college education. And so we want to help these sales reps make more money. And that's why we're putting it in their pockets.
I don't think anyone would argue with that. It's a great mission to have.
Yeah.
So we're recording these conversations, and I'm sure the question is going to arise for some of our listeners about the legality of recording those conversations.
Yes.
How can field technicians ensure that they are complying with state laws?
Yeah. So 39 out of 50 states, you don't have to say anything. Record, it's a one-party consent state. There's 11 out of 50 that are. Some of those are California, Florida, Pennsylvania. And basically all it looks like, if you're doing the door-to-door route, all you have to do is actually just mention that you're recording. You don't have to get consent. So in the door-to-door route, we recommend knock, knock, knock. I've done this myself before. Hey, how's it going? Yeah, I'm Gavin. Yeah, I'm out here with Blank Pest Control. By the way, we record everything for quality and training. I'm going to be taking care of Amanda right here on the corner. She was getting a ton of the ants and spiders. And you just roll into your pitch. And as long as they don't block you and object to it, you just roll along. That's considered implied consent. Then the other side of this, which we typically see for appointment-based, where you're showing up, the customer knows you're coming. It's knock, knock, knock. Hey, how's it going? Amanda, nice to meet you. I'm Gavin. I'm here to do X, Y, or Z. I just want to let you know, we want to make sure I'm doing everything by the books. And we record everything for quality and training purposes, just to make sure everything I do today is done the right way. Are you okay with that? Get that
Absolutely.
consent.
Yeah.
And it's funny, we actually have a ton of customers now in one-party consent states doing that. They are seeing that the customers really like it, because there's sadly so many times in the past where businesses have had poor experiences with customers, and it's left them with a tainted vision of this industry. And when you do that, you're establishing a stronger relationship of trust there. It's like, hey, I can't BS you. I'm being recorded. And we see customers really like that, actually. It's funny to listen to the recordings on our end. We just hear them raving, and you'll hear these crazy stories about this one guy said this was going to happen, then it didn't. And then I got in a lawsuit with the company. It's like, cool, everything's recorded. We don't have to worry about that today.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Accountability.
Exactly.
So I would love to talk about the differences between door-to-door, appointment-based, termite teams. How do they differ within Siro, and how can we use those?
Yeah. So there's a few different aspects of this. So the way we have a version called door-to-door mode for any door-to-door teams. Somebody might be listening thinking, oh, I have to start and stop the recording every single time. We recognize that would be a pain. So we've developed door-to-door mode. And basically all that you do is you just get out of your car, you start knocking on doors, you press start. Let's say you run it for an hour before you have a meaningful conversation. We recommend stopping in Siro as a door-to-door rep for one of two things. You either crushed it and you want to post it for other people to learn from, or you struggled and you want to stop that to mark that as something you want to reference back to later. Maybe you want to tag your manager in that recording. And so let's say you were running it for the hour and you spoke to 20 people. When you press stop, our AI is going to cut up each conversation automatically. So you'll have 20 conversations, and the most recent one you're looking at is the one you just had with that homeowner, 10 seconds after you just left the porch. So that's how you use it on the door-to-door side. Within appointment-based sales, the majority of the time, we'll actually integrate in with your software. So we can trigger different ways to notify the sales rep or the technician to actually press record before they roll up to the home. But all they do is they roll up, they press start, they go through that conversation, have it with the homeowner. When they're done, they get out of the car, they press stop, they'll title that recording, recognize it as a win or loss, and then disposition. Maybe they want to post it or just leave it there. Maybe they want to tag their manager for some feedback right then and there. As far as that's the usage side of it, as far as the coaching goes, we've got these fantastic filters for the door-to-door conversations because the majority of those are not very meaningful. They're short, or they're half the time they didn't even talk about pest control potentially. They talked about the guy's car in the front, and the guy's like, hey, man, I'm not buying pest control today. And the rep moves on. So we have those key moments like the introduction, like when they talked about price, the service, where you can select that those things happened in the conversation. The conversation was maybe 2 minutes to 20 minutes. You want to look at objections. Great. You can tag an objection in there too. Cool. This conversation had an introduction. They talked about the service. An objection occurred as well. Maybe you wanted to recognize these were lost conversations. You wanted to train your team, and you want it to be 2 to 20 minutes. Boom, boom, boom. It builds a playlist for all of those recordings from your team, or maybe a rep in specific. So you're really drilling down to the things that matter. And then with the appointment-based teams doing termite jobs or maybe exclusionary jobs, whatever it may be, using the software on an appointment-based sales, basically what we see is managers can really easily do these similar thing, right? Maybe I just want to train on how they're doing price or how they're doing service or how they're handling, doing the qualification and needs assessment is what some people will call it. Great. You select that rep, you select that bookmark is what we call it, that key moment. And you can build a playlist of every single time that's come up in the home for them. Or just select the first recording from a rep and jump through the moments and get the full feel of what that entire conversation was like. And you can typically coach on an hour-long recording in 10 minutes is what we see coaches are able to do by just cutting out the fat, jumping to those key moments quickly.
Amazing. There seems like there is so much opportunity within this application. I would love to know what your personal favorite feature is and why.
That's a good one. One that kind of blew my mind. And as AI continues to evolve, it's just going to get even better. I made this realization just myself. We're starting to build features within the platform where what I'm going to tell you is going to happen automatically. But we also track all kinds of speech analytics. So how many questions did you ask during the conversation? What was your control metric? Basically, the amount of times you took a turn speaking, and it included a question to control the conversation. What was your words per minute? How fast were you speaking? What was your speaker share? What percentage of the time were you talking versus the customer? And so I remember looking at all of my recordings, the ones that I had recorded and it was actually a close. And I saw my words per minute sat around 175. And then I looked at all the ones where I'd lost and I saw my words per minute. I want to say it was like high 190s. Again, this is about a year ago. I want to say it was 198. But there was a noticeable gap and it was consistent every single time. And I just made a mental note. It's like, all right, if I think I'm not going to win this deal, apparently I'm speeding up. Let's see what happens when I slow down. And I especially started to notice it in conversations where I was getting, these were one-legger conversations where the homeowner is like, yeah, this sounds great, but either my husband or wife, they're not here and I can't make this decision. What I started to notice is I would speed up like crazy when that happened. And it was because I was recognizing the deal was falling apart. And what I did was I actually slowed down even slower than 175. And I saw my close rate go through the roof, and it put me back in control of the conversation just with the pace that I was speaking at. And so there is a very cool aspect within Siro where they're tracking your speech analytics as well. And I think that's awesome. You can really use that and find some insights. And hopefully we think like the next 2 months, it's going to be automatic where we'll be telling you you're speaking too fast during X.
Wow. When you hear that, you think, oh, when you speak faster, it's going better. There's a lot of energy there. But in fact, slowing down seemed to be that deciding factor. Maybe it's just a calmer energy.
Especially when handling those objections. Because the way I always explain this to my reps was, you guys think about it when you were in middle school and someone was doing a presentation in front of the classroom. You could tell they were really nervous and uncomfortable when they were flying through it. But then the other guy who went up there took his time, had those pauses of silence. That felt like that person was in control. They weren't nervous. You engaged to what they were saying a lot better. And so it was cool to see that applied into, pest control sales. But yeah, that's why you got to slow down.
Are there any other lessons that you've learned through your personal experience similar to that with using the AI, things that you noticed about your pitch that needed help?
Yeah. So there's a few different ones. So I learned that my close rate when it was a switchover. So I was doing both sides of the business at the time. I was doing the termite sales and the door-to-door. I'd go back and forth. On the door-to-door side, as an example, anytime the customer already had a company, I realized through Siro that my close rate was actually pretty low compared to other people. And I was one of our top reps. And so what it made me realize is I'm leaving a lot of money on the table. I'm able to close people who don't have pest control at an extremely high rate. But if they have somebody, I'm actually not doing too great. And I saw that within Siro. It highlighted that for me automatically. And so what I did then was I looked, okay, what does the data tell me the best switchover people are in my company? I listened to those recordings, found a few key things that I needed to tweak pretty quickly from listening to one rep in particular. And I made those changes. And by the end of the summer, I had the second most switchovers in the company. And it was just from that little realization within the platform.
That's incredible. I love it. I think that's so cool. Do you have any success stories that you'd like to share from people who have been out in the fields using Siro that you know of?
Yeah. Got a few ones that are cool to tote. One of our customers, they sell fiber, which is, like the fast internet, if you don't know what I'm speaking on. And one of the reps, they'll sell a ton of deals a month, but they're, not terribly high commission. And one of the reps was selling 20 deals a month for the past, handful. And the first month into Siro, he'd sold 70. And you can see his testimonial. We've got it somewhere hidden on our website somewhere. And he just literally raves. He goes, I've learned so many different things. He goes, I learned my introduction was not to the script at all. And what I was actually doing with that is creating more objections later on. So that was like a big finding for him. And then another one for him is he learned he talked way too much. He looked at his speaker share and saw it was well over 80%. We typically recommend sitting around 65%. He brought that down. He said customers he could tell that they felt more heard on what their actual needs were by him. He understood what they truly cared about and was able to take that by not speaking so much. He was able to understand what they truly cared about and then really pinpoint their needs when he was selling. And yeah, he literally went from a bottom rep for months on end consistently. And he literally was the top rep in the company that next month. And that was after his first months on Siro. And so, yeah, there's stories like this that just are starting to rack up. It's crazy cool what we're seeing. One customer in particular, Royalty Renewables, they track, and this is actually they stole this idea from me telling that story about the words per minute. they track words per minute on closed versus not closed deals very heavily. And for them in Texas, for what, we see different markets have different ranges for what's best. They see when you sit between 180 to 200 words per minute, you sell. If you're too slow or you're too fast, the results are just drastically different. And so they really lean into that. And their guys, after every recording that they lose, they pull up their words per minute. If they're in range, okay, cool, I lost it. But if they're out of range, well, great, that might be the reason I lost this. They have particular, they've been with Siro for 6 months. They started with 10 sales reps. They now have 50, and they've been able to scale it like crazy strictly because they can listen to a ton of different recordings way more than before. And they've also taken this big picture data they've gotten from the platform, applied it to their teams. They're not losing reps. Like basically, if you come sell with them, they stay, which is not common in the solar industry. Yeah, we're these stories I could go on forever, but we've seen it apply rep by rep as well as across entire companies.
It seems like using this application, you're able to not only train your employees and hold them accountable, but also your retention rate is going to be higher because they're going to be seeing success sooner.
Yes, I brought out 31 rookies and I had 30 finish for my past summer using Siro. And that's unheard of in door-to-door pest control, at least for the door-to-door side. I didn't have a single termite guy leave either. And I think what that comes from is, you're able to get into more recordings faster or more interactions faster using the recordings. And from that, you learn each guy's very different. And what I realized is my team trainings that I'd been doing the 5 years prior without Siro, they were just these blanketed trainings that maybe applied to 25% of the room. And so when I realized which each guy was struggling with, we would bucket people up into where they were struggling and have specific managers train on the topic we have realized they're struggling with within Siro. Totally changed the way we ran morning meetings. And the guys were actually getting the feedback they needed, not just a generic broad training that we thought the team needed as well. And so that was, totally cool thing we used it for.
I love this personalized training.
Yeah.
I think that's so cool. So can you tell our listeners about the integration between Siro and Service Titan and how that will work with field routes moving forward?
Yeah. So I can start by telling what we do in Service Titan today. And then we just, about a month ago, formed our official partnership within field routes. So we are building right now the integration for field routes, which is going to basically mirror what we've done for Service Titan. And so what it looks like is we realize we've got all these recordings and we want to start connecting the data to your actual customers. And so that's been a big request from people who use our platform is we want to be able to know what was said with this customer, maybe 6 months after the recording was made. And so the workaround, you can do that in Siro. You can search their address up, and it'll pull up the recording that happened there. But to make it easier, we integrate with Service Titan. So after every recording is done, we'll spit back a summary of what went down, services and products offered, customer concerns, what was agreed upon. We can get crazy with this. I've seen some customers basically summarize any personal details about the customer, like their dog's name, if they're military, if they're a teacher, service, potentially, to potentially use that on a reach out. Maybe someone actually said no. You want to call them back up and say, hey, by the way, we wanted to first of all say thank you for your service. We had that, interaction with you 6 months ago. Our rep let us know, blah, 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 build that personal connection. And also just have a record of what went down in that conversation with the homeowner. So we'll spit that back into Service Titan today. We'll do it into the job, and we'll also attach the recording link right there. Then from there, we integrate into Service Titan. We'll put in a little link. So when a technician or a sales rep shows up to an appointment, they actually hit check-in. It pops up, record in Siro. They press a button, they press the next page. It'll hit the recording button, makes it easy for them. So it's recording in Siro they don't have to remember to do it. It's in their face. It happens right then and there. And then from Service Titan, we actually go ahead and pull in all the win-loss data. So in Siro, you can actually see how many deals somebody's closed. We'll be able to trigger if a recording was won as a closed deal or not within Siro automatically. We don't have to rely on the rep dispositioning that. And so the idea is big picture, it's to connect the customer's information into the CRM and then take the CRM data to make our data even stronger.
That's incredible. That's incredible. I'm so excited to look at it in action and see how it works for everyone and hear all the positivity coming from our field routes customers who are going to be able to utilize this for their training as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Gavin, for coming onto the podcast. Before we go, I wanted to ask you, is there anything that you wish we talked about today?
I think probably just the last thing that we're seeing all of our customers who are on Siro today in any field, they're saying probably one of in all of their opinions, maybe the number one most valuable piece is just actually using these recordings in their morning meetings. Role plays are great, but it's not the real thing. And by being able to pull up live rounds, there's a handful of things that get accomplished from that. One, you make your morning meetings a heck ton more interesting. It's actually what happened in the home. So you're training on the real stuff, not just a role play. It also reinforces belief in what you teach as a company in your process. You can show examples of when somebody did the right thing and it worked, maybe how you handle an objection or do a certain step in the process, and examples of when it failed. Reps will actually go offer this all the time. Hey, can we break this down in a meeting? I don't know why I'm not making deals and I want to know how I can be better. Well, when you break that down all together, you get everybody in the room providing their insight. You build that belief that what you train on actually works. You can see live rounds of it happening, not just a role play on what you say works. And just we're seeing the light bulbs go off in the room all the time. People are building what we call the Siro film sessions into their weekly trainings. And the value from that alone is what people are saying covers the cost. The other things are just ancillary little benefits on top.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing all of your insight. We're so excited. And thank you again.
Cool. Thank you, Amanda.